Hey everyone, Sleepy Reader here, Damien, aka. This is going to be my last comic book countdown of the year of 2019, and sadly it ends with a bit of a fizzle. So what can I do? That's just how I felt. And this is all about my feelings as I rank them. I'm going to rank 14 comics, 13 from one week, one from this past week. I'm going to rank them all by how much I enjoyed them. And 3 of them I literally did not enjoy at all. And then about 9 of them, maybe 10 of them, were all just kind of, okay, that was fun enough to read, but no big deal. So it was really hard I didn't have much in the top ranks. Even my top most ranked one was a lesser issue of that series, I would say. To my reading, to my feeling about it. As I often point out, this is not a absolute critical thing. It's just, it's my personal experience. Probably I repeat that too much. So coming in at number 14 was Strayed from Dark Horse. And I've been enjoying Dark Horse comics less and less lately, for the most part. I mean, there's still exceptions, particularly the Karen Berger books. But this one was promising at first, this wacko science fiction story about a cat that could astral project around the galaxy or around the universe, finding planets, and the evil dictatorship on Earth that was taking advantage of that and exploiting those planets to the extreme. And it kind of got less and less compelling to me as it went along. And by this 5th and final issue, to me, there was just nothing here for me. I think maybe some other people might find it kind of this interesting poetic thing. The entire issue has this kind of overlay narration and captions, and that's all there is, which does not specifically address what's going on in the pictures. And the pictures are kind of cool at times, but I couldn't always tell what significance I was supposed to be getting from the pictures. And the overlaid narration, while kind of like a prose poem of hope and unity or something, just left me cold. So basically I was just left looking at some pretty pictures and not sure how I was supposed to feel the story had concluded, although I guess there was a happy ending. So a big belly flop for me, and just kind of made me feel like I'd kind of wasted my time reading this series. Although now I'm enjoying showing you the pictures, so maybe I should just go back and enjoy the pictures without trying to get that much of a story out of them. Or maybe if I reread all 5 issues, this issue will have more impact than coming a month or more after the previous issue. So it was a weird one to begin with. Then in at number 13, another comic that I felt kind of was a waste of my time. I already kind of hinted that this King Thor series was not, could have just all been one issue. It was just a big fight. And at this point in the fight, things are just so abstract. And again, there's a whole lot of, in this case, Jason Aaron doing some narration over things that's supposed to make it more poetic and profound, but didn't really do anything for me. I felt like Isad Ribic's art that had been so great on the first 3 issues kind of fell down here. And then there's a bunch of guest artists who did an okay job, but nothing. It just didn't wow me, and the story just felt all over the place without a real point to it. So I think it was supposed to be profound, and for me it wasn't profound. I think that's what's his name? Forgetting his name. Sorrentino. There's another artist. So I guess it was kind of fun I couldn't really figure out who all the artists were, to tell you the truth. And at one point, for some reason, Thor became a planet. I think Jason Aaron was just throwing all his extra Thor ideas in here, or the idea of endless stories he was throwing in here, that there are endless stories told and untold about Thor through the millennium. which potentially could be a cool story, but it just felt like a failed stew where everything was stirred and became mush. Threw too many ingredients in here. But none of the ingredients did I care about. So I kind of felt both, it's kind of like with Strayed, both I felt like I'd wasted my time reading this, and it ultimately made the King Thor series seem like pretty much a waste of time. Sorry to be so harsh. In the old days when I didn't review all my comics, I didn't do this comic book countdown style, I think if I didn't like comics like that, I might just not even bother mentioning them. At number 12, I had high hopes for another Hill House Comics, The Low, Low Woods, and I really did not like this one. I did not like the characters. I didn't really get much of a sense of them, except that they lived in a dead-end town, and there was, I don't know, and they're lesbians, and they say the F word a lot. What the conflict or what the story or what the horror going on here, I guess, is for future issues. The writer was just fumbling about trying to find her story at this point. The coloring was really good by Tamara Bonvillain, or Bonvillain. In fact, it seemed like I saw a lot of good coloring by her this past week. And the art was okay by Danny, although she did a much better job in that other horror series. I forget what it's called, that came out from Image and just ended. But the writer was just clueless, I felt. And apparently this is a famous literary writer writing that book. Or, a very awarded young literary writer who went to the University of Iowa and has had all these Guggenheim grants and this and that. I looked up her on Wikipedia. And then we've got Mark Millar's latest. So now we're in those three that I just covered, 12 through 14. I just wish I hadn't bothered. American Jesus was okay, but I don't think I'll be picking up the next issue. I was just curious. I was like, oh, Peter Gross working with Mark Millar. I was curious about. I know it's supposed to be Mark Millar, but it says Millar right on the cover. But Peter Gross is an artist I like a lot for his work on Lucifer, and in fact, he's currently working on the really good The Dollhouse Family over at Black Label. But I didn't find the art here terribly inspired, nor the coloring. And the story it's wacky, Mark Millar, but not really something I'm dying to read. Maybe I'll read it in trade out of curiosity. Because what we've got here is a new immaculate birth with angels guiding these kids, a virgin birth, and talk of the Antichrist. And I guess when is it set? The 80s, I assume, at this point. I can't remember if they give us a exact date. But, maybe the 70s. Young Frankenstein. When did that come out? In the 70s. But anyway, the angels predict our current political situation as being the end times. So all those sort of more extreme Christian theories about end times and the Antichrist and multinationalism and what do you call it? The one world order and all of that is apparently true, and God is against it in this comic. So what is Mark Millar up to there? Just trying to stir the pot and cause trouble, I assume. So yeah, that was an interesting comic. I'm not going to continue getting it. At least I don't think so, because the Peter Gross artwork did not turn me on the way I'd hoped. In at number 10, we have Legion of Superheroes number 2 from Brian Michael Bendis and Ryan Sook. For the most part, I loved the Ryan Sook art. The Jordi Belair coloring was pretty good, although it would have been even better with Tamara Bonvillain, I think. The story was just kind of, I would have moments where I liked it and moments where it's just really annoying the way the dialogue was, and maybe this is not my Legion of Superheroes. Maybe the way Brian Michael Bendis does dialogue and character portrayal is really clicking on all cylinders for someone in their 20s or their teens, I hope, or their pre-teens. That would be wonderful. I can't tell if that would be right for them. There was some cool stuff in here. We continue the plot with the Triton of Atlantis, some stuff with the president of the United Worlds, and apparently Thorn, just out of nowhere, it seems to me, is now working for the Legion. Even in the last issue, she couldn't even get them to listen to her about anything. And she's this mysterious character. It's weird because in the Legion Millennium, Thorn went through periods of being a vicious killer. We saw her behead people and all that stuff. I'm not sure what we're supposed to make of her as a character, but I'm intrigued a little bit. And then there's this weird thing where when the Legion wants to relax, they go to this place called Heaven. Is that a cool idea? Is that a dumb idea? I don't know. It's very hard to focus on characters and get a bead on people. They're not like they used to be, as far as I could tell, but they obviously have the same costumes or similar costumes and powers, but maybe not similar personalities. And then, just sort of out of the blue, Superboy decides to go bring his buddy Robin to the future too. Sorry, I just spoiled it. Oh well. Anyway, I didn't know what to make of this, so I enjoyed it, but I'm just kind of waiting for it to gel a little more. Which, in a way, this is the fourth issue of, if you count Legion Millennium, the prologue to it, plus all the appearances of the Legion in some of the other Bendis books recently, some of which I read, some of which I didn't. Okay, and then at number 9, we have the Suicide Squad, which was a solid read. I wasn't... And what at first looked like solid art, but somehow I just didn't get into the art. It was kind of maybe what is now this current standard style at DC. A little bit like Ryan Sook light, I suppose. But the art and the story maybe didn't gel together for me that well. And it's basically kind of grim and depressing in a way. And so one of the themes is a lot of these books were kind of bringing me down, and I want to be bring up. I want to be more cheerful and more fun. So I think the Suicide Squad is probably going to be pretty good, at least on the writing level from Tom Taylor, but maybe just not my cup of tea right now. There's a new person who is running the Suicide Squad who's even more awful than what's her name? Amanda Walker. Amanda Walker? Amanda Waller? Amanda Waller. Amanda Waller does show up, merely to say that she is leaving the service and handing over the Suicide Squad to that guy. So, not bad. Not a bad comic. The finale of Donny Cates' run on Guardians of the Galaxy. I guess next we see Guardians of the Galaxy, it'll be rebooted to another #1 with Al Ewing writing it. So I'll probably get that. I've been enjoying Guardians of the Galaxy under Cates, and it was a pretty good conclusion to his story. But it was $5. Why? No particular reason. It could have been a regular 20-page story. And at the end, they just added in a bunch of double-page spreads, kind of, I guess, reminiscing on all the Donny Cates adventures of the past by different artists. They look pretty cool, but I could have been happy just saving $1. Yeah. So it's kind of, I don't know, a goodbye to Donny Cates, but he'll be back in lots of other comics. We even get a double-page spread of the Silver Surfer Black. So if you love these double-page spreads, I guess it's a good issue to get. And we get kind of a happy ending with Rocket Raccoon and all of that. So I enjoyed it. It was a fun, solid comic. Nothing that special. So next up was the Snifter of Terror at number 7. Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror. I love that cover. If you think about it a while, you realize it is a tribute to the Batman 66 movie. During the summer, after the first Batman 66 season, the Adam West Batman, they made a movie version, and it has a famous scene of Batman running around with a bomb that's lit, trying to find some place to dispose of it, and everywhere he goes, he can't dispose of it. And just so that we don't miss the fact that it's a reference to Batman 66, we get the zap, pow, sock, boom. And then on the back cover, I guess we get what the artist did without all the special effects. So, the Snifter of Terror continues in the second season to be fun enough, creepy horror stories to read, but maybe not up at that extra high level. So there's an interesting take on the Pit and the Pendulum involving a CIA operative, and it's very creepy and very anti-CIA and American foreign policy via when or if we've done it through executions and other skullduggery. And then there was a fun story about the Raven going to see his agent, giving him an acting job, which would be to say nevermore to Edgar Allan Poe to make him stop being in love with Lenore. So I thought that was very funny. But this kind of very digital art didn't seem to go that well to me with the story, with the writing. So I like the writing better than the story. And then there was another wonderful slapstick Hunt Emerson, Edgar Allan Poe and the Black Cat comic at the back, which was good. So, it was a solid middle of the road, middle of the pack issue, as was almost all the comics here. So I keep hoping that the Snifter of Terror, maybe they've run out of a little bit of gas there, because I like the first season a lot better. And here at number 6, we have a new Black Hammer book called Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy. And it looks like a good, solid, dark, grim superhero comic about this vigilante superhero who kills evildoers with this skull thing, and how he recruits a boy to become his sidekick. And so that's the beginning of this. It's pretty good, but yeah, I don't know if I'm going to keep getting it. They put it in my pull because I used to have Black Hammer in my pull, and it's from the world of Black Hammer. But do I really need it? I need to get less comics in a way. So I don't know. I'm tempted because I really like the art. And, it explores the dark side once again of the Batman, somewhere between Batman and Punisher, I think is what we're looking at here. In at number 5, still pretty much the middle of the pack, everything, kind of okay, what was Once and Future. And this was my least favorite issue of Once and Future. I'd say the other issues of Once and Future did more for me. We have great coloring by Tamara Bonvillain. I love her use of bright colors and the way she mixes I don't know what you call it when you choose your palette or your contrasting colors or your various colors that go together. The way she works that out is often very pleasing. Although this issue is a little darker than her usual. And it was an issue with a lot more exposition than a lot of the usual ones. And some of it I didn't fully understand. So that's a little bit why it was a little disappointing compared to the other issues. Each issue hung as its own beat, and this issue felt like it started with a whole bunch of exposition that had to do with happened in the previous issue, and I don't have the previous issue in front of me, so it was a little foggy there maybe. And this concept of raising a Percival and raising a Galahad was interesting to me, but I didn't quite understand fully what all that meant. So again, something maybe I need to go back and read. Maybe this is something that will be better in trade after all. Great cover. And I'm definitely not dropping this one or anything. I'm really enjoying it. I also thought that Dan Mora, the artist on here, has really been kicking butt. That was a little more toned down in this issue. I don't know if that means he's drawing too many comics at once, or if that was for some other reason. But anyway, that was at number 5. In at number 4 was Lucifer, and it's continuing. The first 13 issues of Lucifer were fantastic for me, one of the top comics of 2019. But issue 14 and now 15 continues to not click with me as much. And now some version of Constantine of the Hellblazer is becoming a major character here. And it was more grim and depressing again that I needed without as much fun. I mean, I suppose you could say it was an honest depiction of the devil and of hell at the beginning of the comic and everything. But it all kind of made me feel a bit blue, and I didn't have a center to focus on here. I'm not caring about this as much as on the first story arc, the first 13 issues. I guess I'll stick with it, but part of me, I have this gut feeling it's just going to keep going in a direction that's not for me. So I don't know. And then in at number 3 was Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, which is a comic that's very funny, but my sense of humor is not quite matching up with it. I'm loving the art, and there are moments where it's really funny. There's moments where the kind of disjointed mini stories that aren't really stories bug me, and other times they seem really cool to me. The timeline of events is really hard to keep track of for me. So it's a very mixed bag. But overall, I'm glad I read it, and I want to keep reading. But I still long for some other version of Jimmy Olsen. I'm not sure by who or what it would be. I want it to be funny and goofy, but in a slightly different way. It's just not my ideal Jimmy Olsen for whatever reason. And somehow Superman's head seems the wrong shape to me. Excellent colors, excellent art. The colorist Nathan Fairborn. Sorry. Nice lettering, too, by Clayton Cowles. So it's a neat comic, and it's great that it's so unique and everything. In at number 2, and number 1 sort of rose above the pack a bit. Number 2 was this Dead Earth. I got the alternate cover. Both covers were by the writer-artist Daniel Warren Johnson, but this cover appealed to me more, so I was glad my shop had both. I just think that looks really cool. I like the color and everything. The colorist in here was named Mike Spicer, and he did a really good job. And Daniel Warren Johnson's art is very appealing. It's not very superhero-ish. And most of all, Wonder Woman just, I don't know. She seems very young and very ragged. It's not a big complaint, but this mutated version of Cheetah was super cool. So it's a really fun post-apocalyptic story. I don't think it's too deep and complicated, but it resonated with me, and it was really fun to read. And so I look forward to the next issue. And I think Daniel Warren Johnson's art really warrants this size. Although it would be nice if it laid flat. I think that these kind of square-bound things look cool, but don't actually always serve the art the best. Although I guess there's not a lot of double-page spreads at least. But there is a sense of you'd really have to flatten this out to get to the edge of the gutters. The one thing I thought was interesting, let me see if I can find one of the monsters. There's this style of monster that I see now in a lot of comics. It reminds me of the monsters or the alien creatures or whatever they are in, what's the name of that Robert Kirkman comic that I like right now? And reminds me of monsters that are in a bunch of comics. I'm sorry, my brain. I've talked too long and my brain is farting, but there's a bunch of comics I've seen similar it's this style of monsters that I guess is a common thing now, but I didn't used to see in comics. So my number one comic, and less satisfying than other issues, is Criminal number 11. And I think it's maybe issue number 5 or 6. Oh, it's part 7 in Cruel Summer. And I think there's a part 8, and then it will be the end. And so this penultimate thing has the kind of climax, in a sense, of the action, and it's the big heist. But the big heist takes up the whole book, and the interesting character studies are at a lower point, although there's some interesting stuff about Teague and his fantasies for his son that happen at the beginning of the comic. And then we get kind of a appearance of a character that took me a minute to figure out who it was, and then I realized it was the character from the very first chapter here, who I think we've seen once since. And I was a little surprised by the action he took. It wasn't what I expected from his personality. If what appeared to happen on screen or in panel is what really happened. I guess I won't spoil it beyond that. There's some hint at double crosses, but we never find out if there really was a double cross or who did it. So I assume we'll find out next issue, and I'm expecting great things from part 8. I've loved part 1 through 6. In fact, it kept getting better and better. So it was kind of noticeable to me that I didn't quite have as much fun with this part 7. But I still had a lot of fun with it. Of these comics, it was no question, it was the number one comic. So there you have it. I hope to find time to do a kind of sleepy vlog where I talk about the year of 2019 in comics and the whole decade that we've had from the year 2010 to 2019. It's been an interesting time because that's basically, during most of this decade, I've started focusing on current comics and what's coming out, whereas in the 2000s, I was kind of way off in the periphery and having no idea when I was reading a hot new comic or what. I was just wandering in and out of the world of comics during that decade. And the 90s is a whole nother story. But anyway, so I've kind of, I started back into comics because of digital comics, and then New 52 drew me in 2011, and YouTube inspired me, and the New 52 and all of that inspired me to start this channel. So this channel's been going, is going to come up on its 8th year, but it feels like it's, that's the most part of the decade. So I wanted to reflect back on all that. So I hope to find time to do that. I had asked Matt from my Never Stay Dead podcast if he would like to talk about the decade, but I think he was a little uncomfortable with that idea. So I'll just do it on my own. Okay, see you all soon. Bye-bye.